I said, I can sit here right now and tell you, for whatever reason, I don't love myself still. I'm sober all these years. I've done so
Yeah.
much work. Why do I still not love myself? Why do I still talk so mean to myself? Why am I so cruel to myself every time I make a mistake? I don't know how to take compliments from people. I
Hmm.
fly off the handle. Somebody cuts me off in traffic. I might lash out at somebody. I was like a pot of boiling water, man, just ready to tip over. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and I'm sober. I like worked my butt off in sobriety. Like this doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. Well, come to find out, I had a bunch of stuff I hadn't even known was there and to work on. So I had a bunch of childhood core wound type of stuff that I needed to attack, and I didn't
Hmm.
know about it at the time. So here I am
Okay.
thinking I'm sober. I got all these hobbies. Got a great profession. Living in this house near the beach. I got a beautiful girl. Like I got it
Yeah.
made, man. Like you want what I have. Trust me, right? Well, you don't
Hmm.
know what's going on the inside. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm glad you sharing that, because see, a lot of people think that recovery is about drugs and alcohol. But listening to you, it sounds like you know that this little, even though all those years experience that you have, you finally got to a point and said, no, I don't love myself. I still hate myself. And so what are some of the tools, or what's some of the tools that you help your clients use to get to that deep ingrained belief system, the stuff that they're not even aware of?
It's a lot of it's a lot of do stuff that's uncomfortable, right? Like in
Hmm.
recovery, it's like what does making coffee have to do with staying sober? What does going to shake those people's hand or putting up the chairs or cleaning the ashtrays back in the day when we were still smoking indoors? Like what does that have to do with recovery? It's like
Yeah.
now I have to do hard things because my brain says that's difficult. What are you going to say about me? What are you going to think? What am I going to think about me? And so
Hmm.
I have people who push me to do those things and help keep me accountable. I go do those things and it's like, hey, guess what, Pat? You didn't die. Hey, guess
Yeah.
what? Nobody laughed at you. Or if they did, the hell with them. Like, hey, guess what? You did that thing. And now your body says and your brain says, wow, that didn't kill me. So now I can do this other thing or I can do that again. It's just like we talk about in recovery. You can't think your way into good acting. You have to act your way into good thinking.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I do things no matter what my brain says, right? Like, oh, I'm going to go on this podcast. Oh, what are people going to think? And how am I going to sound? And how am I going to look? And da, 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 all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But the more I do this, the more comfortable I get. And it doesn't matter. And it's fine. And for me,
Yeah.
the biggest thing that I learned, Vernon, was what I touched about earlier was what my core wounds are. And
Yeah.
for me, when I get triggered, when I
Hmm.
when I say you made me feel this or you this, right? Because I'm playing the victim again, like I used to do. I'm
Hmm.
getting triggered, and what's happened is I have core wounds of feeling defective. I feel devalued. I feel less than. I feel maybe abandoned, neglected, and so what happens is I have an emotional response, which is like I'm
Right.
upset. I get defensive. I want to lash out. I want to withdraw and hide. And so there's this whole chain reaction that happens when I get triggered. So if you say something to me and I think there's a little bit of truth to it, that triggers me and it sets off this whole event that happens. And so what happens is learning those core wounds and then doing some other activities and journaling and talking to people and just doing things differently.
Yeah.
I don't have those strong reactions anymore. It's kind of like, our family presses our buttons, right? And so what
Hmm.
happens is now when my family tries to press my buttons, my family members is like, nothing happens. The buttons have
Yeah.
been disconnected, right? And that took a long time, because they could push every single one of those damn buttons, eat
Yeah.
from far distances. So, but a lot of that came from my childhood,
Okay, I was about
you
to
know,
ask you that. You talked
and
about some core wounds, right?
yep,
You talked about some
childhood.
core wounds. Where those core wounds come from?
Well, that's where our programming happens, right? Like from the time we're born till we're like 7, 8, 10 years old, we're
Yeah.
observing, we're taking everything in, man. So if the parents are fighting with each other, if there's destructive drinking in the home, if there's verbal, physical, emotional abuse going on, we're absorbing that. We're taking that in. And now what happens? I take that into my marriage. I've been
Hmm.
married, I've been divorced once now. Like,
Okay.
and so I took some of those behaviors totally subconsciously, not even knowing, into my marriage. And I'm being not the kind of husband I thought I would be, especially as a sober man, and going,
Okay.
man, I'm acting like my family, right? I'm acting like my parents right now. Like, what is this, right? I'm having this like
Yeah.
step back, seeing myself from a top view. Like I have these things ingrained in me that I don't even know are there, that are just
Right.
subconscious. And so until they come out, I got to shine light on them, and then I got to deal with them. Or no,
Yeah.
or I don't, and I just keep, repeating the same destructive patterns, and then I go get married 3 or 4 more times and have a bunch of, horrible relationships. And so I was
Right.
hell bent determined to not repeat that. So
Right.
so the
So what you
childhood.
do? What you do in your marriage? You're married. You've been through a divorce once. I've been through a divorce once. So now these defects, these shortcomings, these core wounds popping up in your marriage,
Mhm.
right? What are some of the skills and techniques that you use to not act out on this marriage like you did on your first one?
Oh, now I'm not married, but we've been together 7 years. I mean,
Okay.
it's
Okay.
a matter of time. But she's being patient because she knows I'm a little PTSD from having a first marriage because she's never been married. So I'm taking
Okay.
my time, obviously. But we have a great, loving, intimate relationship. And
Good deal.
so
Okay.
what I'm doing now is, dude, I do stuff like I still surprise her. We've been together over 7 years, and also say, "Hey, babe, put on something nice. We're going to go out tonight. Where are we going? You'll see when we get there. Wear
Yeah.
something kind of like this." And they love the anticipation, man, and like the surprise. So like I keep her guessing is one thing.
Okay.
I treat her like my lover more than like a friend. Now we do a lot of activities together. She boxes too. We play soccer together. We do all kinds of activities together, work out together. But
Yeah.
I don't treat her like a pal. And that's what I did in my first marriage. We worked the
Okay.
same job. We both were nurses. We both had all kinds of stress and stuff. And so it became
Hmm.
more of like friends sleeping with each other. Whereas
Okay.
now it's more romance, it's more affection, it's more intimacy. So I learned when she's having a bad day and something's going on, don't fix her. You hear
Okay.
me? You hear
Yeah.
that? Don't fix her. As men, we
Right.
want to fix everybody and everything. And
Right.
when we're trying to fix the woman feels like, well, why are you treating me like I'm broken? I'm not broken.
Hmm.
I'm just having a bad day. I'm just trying to tell you about what happened today. So I've learned better to just like let me listen. And if she wants my input, she'll ask me, what do you
Yeah.
think about this? So dude, that's been like huge in and of itself. Like really getting down, fine tuning masculinity and
Yeah.
femininity, and knowing that like I have to have a balance of both. I can't be all masculine. Obviously, I
Right.
can't be all feminine. I have to have a balance, man. Because
Okay.
the women want us to have that soft side. They want us to have that healing, nurturing side of us, but not all
Right.
the times. And we got to have that masculine side, right? Like you would
Yeah.
starting your business. Like we have that masculinity is that mission, that drive, that goal. No matter what, nothing's going to stand in our way.
Yeah.
That's the masculine side, and then the feminine's
Okay.
the nurturing, healing, loving part. And so we got to have a balance of that. So
Right.
and I come to find out that's a lot of times what makes relationships successful or not. And so what happened in my first marriage, looking back, I think I
Hmm.
became less masculine as I became having all kinds of stress and issues, and I started treating my ex-wife like she was my mom, right? I started leaning on her too
Okay.
much with my problems. And so
Okay.
I think that started turning her off eventually. And then she became the masculine one. And then we were in a power struggle. Then it becomes a power struggle.
That's
I
critical. See, that's critical right there.
I
That's
quit romancing her, doing surprising her. I quit doing all that stuff I did in the beginning.
right. That little wounded boy you talk about. I want to ask you. Sometimes that little wounded boy, like I like how you say it that I wanted her basically to be your mother.
She would say,
Right.
man,
Right.
I would lash out, or she'd go, I'm not your mom, right? Like, don't
Right.
treat me like
Right.
I'm your mom. Because I would get
Yep.
defensive. I would read into stuff that she would say or do. And then I'm like, I'm going to be stone cold silent and all that stuff.
Right. Right. And go to your little grab your ball and go home because you hurt.
Little
Right.
brat, act like a
Because
brat.
that look, yeah. Even though we grown men, that little boy, if you don't deal with that wounded child, he will show up. Okay, and I tell people all the time, right? Wherever I'm sharing that, I say I'm 58 years old, but on any given day, I can act like a child. Why? Because you was talking about touching those wounds. I
Hmm.
can act like the 7-year-old. I can act like the 13-year-old. I can act like the 5-year-old. So, so we learn tools, and that's critical. I'm glad you brought that up because I see it the most in my marriage and my relationship. So now when you begin to act out that little boy, what do you do? Do you call somebody, or what do you do?
I normally I see it. I first off I feel it because I feel discomfort in my chest or my stomach. So I feel it. I feel my blood pressure start to rise, right? And I
Okay.
so I start to talk to myself like a loving parent would. Patrick, it's okay, man. They didn't mean it by this, or Patrick, you're starting to feel such and such. I have this thing that my coach gave me that I'm happy to share with your listeners too. It's called a feelings and needs list. So,
Okay.
so anytime I'm having a feeling, I go, okay, I first off have to identify this feeling. I'm feeling mad, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling hurt, whatever the case is. And then the next step is what need do I have that I'm interpreting as not being met? So you just
Okay.
triggered me. Okay, now I go down this needs list and it's all categorized. What's the need? Maybe I need affection. Maybe I need some space. Maybe I just need some independence. Back off a
Yeah.
little bit. Maybe I need some touch. I mean, it could be there's a whole 60, 70 different needs that we have that my vocabulary can't even comprehend that. So I have this paper that has all that listed. So then the third step, the most important step of this, Vernon, is how do I get that need met without having you do something different? So I get out of victim mentality. So I go,
Yeah.
Vernon, you made me feel this. So instead of
Yeah.
doing that, I go, okay, he said this or he did this. This is how I feel. It's because I have this need. How do I get this need met? Well, I'm going to go get this need met over here in this other way. I'm going to get this need met through myself. I'm going to get this need met maybe by calling somebody else and talking to them about it. I'm going to get this need met by taking some action.